Conversations, the future of blackness, where we meet and build what's next.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations, the Future of Blackness. I'm John Cager, an ordained clergy person and observer of all things Black. With us today are the Reverend Kirkpatrick Tyler, noted clergy person and rabble-rouser, and Edward Sanders, public affairs executive. Both of these brothers have actually made money doing politics, so they know what they're talking about. And here in Conversations, we are always discussing Black politics, Black economics, Black culture, Black society, and our future. Gentlemen, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani won the mayoral election in New York City. The big labor was against him. 60% of Black preachers were against him. 60% of Black politicians in the state of New York were against him. National Black politicians like Jim Clyburn endorsed the other guy. But Mamdani got 55% of the Black vote, over 80% of the Black voters between the ages of 18 and 29. Is the Black political institution and the Black church out of touch with Black voters, particularly young Black voters? Go ahead.
I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna look at this through the prism of every so often there is a change candidate that flips the table, and I can think back to 2008 when Barack Obama was running against Hillary Clinton, and the same sort of lineup that you just described was backing Hillary Clinton over Barack Obama. Eventually, Barack won. And it's not so much that they were out of touch, it's just that a change agent came along with a campaign that was different than what we'll call the status quo was. It'll be interesting to see, just to further it, how the policies are enacted. Now, if Mamdani enacts policies that you look to see how the Black vote stays with his policies, if 80% of the Black community supports his policies, then no one is out of touch. But if, let's say, he starts enacting policies and now only 10% of the Black community support his policies, yes, that campaign or that candidate has now become out of touch. The campaign itself is just a snapshot in time, and I wouldn't call it out of touch. But
Okay, KP?
Man, yeah, so I think if they're not out of touch, they're definitely in an echo chamber. And I think what happens there is you have kind of a selected few among Black voices, among young adult voices who often are already a part of the establishment and already a part of the system. And so you think like, oh, we've listened, we've heard from these. But I think Mamdani did what we also saw Obama do, which were tap into the segment of community that were not politically active or engaged, but knew that something needed to change and something needed to be different. And so I think the other part of that is, particularly in Black faith communities, is that those same populations aren't inside of our congregation. And so we can't necessarily hear what they think or how they are experiencing either social determinants or what they think about these politicians, because we're just not in the same spaces. So again, I don't know if I would say they're out of touch, but definitely they are not listening to what's being said by a significant segment of the population, and more particularly young adults that are coming up in this era.
So, Ed, you're talking about, well, that happens when you get a change agent coming. We recall during Obama's campaign when Jesse Jackson and I believe it was Tavis Smiley were heard in a hot mic moment talking about Obama wasn't kissing the ring and they were going to have to kick his ass.
right.
We know that we have a problem in the Black community sometimes letting go and bringing in new voices.
Sure.
How do we get the voices of the 18 to 29-year-olds, of the 55% who voted for Mamdani? How do we get them heard amongst our traditional Black leadership?
Look, there is no silver bullet to that issue, right? And I think the issue of or the idea of an older generation holding or staying too long or silencing the voice of a younger generation. I think we see that in a number of different sectors, business, however. I'm always drawn to the Godfather phrase that power is taken, not given. And maybe I'm misquoting that. But in this case, the idea of making your voice strong is a function of just organizing and amplifying. And I think the young people today, I think the younger generations have a much easier path to that, given the technology, given the flattening of mediums. I think that the ability to express yourself, even in forums like this, allow you to reach more people and build a base. And that's what's important is you've got to continue to organize, continue to promote with ideas that are fresh, that can change our community for the better.
Yeah, I actually think that the conversation is now turned on its head. I don't know that it's so much about how the younger generation gets their voice heard in our spaces. It's really how do we get our voices heard in their spaces. And I think that's a part of how Mamdani won, that he allowed kind of the popular thought to do what it was going to do because he knew it wasn't going to keep up on social media, wasn't going to keep up in podcast, wasn't going to keep up in the modern technology. So he was talking and communicating on the frequency to a group of people that we hadn't even thought about, right? And so I think the question we'll have to struggle with, and I think we'll probably dig into this even deeper. The question we have to struggle with now is, how does the establishment get its voice into the populace, right? We saw the same thing with the Hillary Clinton campaign. The assumption was that those Obama voters were just going to come on and, oh, these are new Democrats. No, they weren't Democrats. They were Obama voters. And the moment that Obama was off the table, so was their vote. The data shows that. The outcome shows that. And probably the conversations of folks like myself who projecting, I think, the same thing with Kamala Harris, projected like, oh, this race is not going to go the way people think it is.
Well, I'm gonna stop both of you, and I'm gonna redirect this because as we talk about, we don't have a path of succession, or we do have a pathway of succession. What we know we have in almost every area where we have black electeds are black fiefdoms, and I have my group. And I want my tree to succeed me.
Sure.
And I fought with this black elected over something else, and the folks in my tree bet not deal with the folk in their tree.
Right.
And we will have this contest between our fiefdoms from the school board election all the way up to the United States Senate.
And the whole time, black folks are losing.
Black folks are losing because we have godfathers and godmothers who want to call shots up into the grave and maybe from beyond the grave. And with that knowledge, you both know what I'm talking about. How do we create a pathway for new folks who don't come from his tree or her tree or that tree, but come from an organic upwelling of crying from the community because the people in this tree are beholden to big tobacco. Brother Ed, the people in this tree, Pastor KP, are beholden to big oil or big gas.
Right.
And the people don't want tobacco or big oil or big gas.
Right.
But that's who's paying the bills for these campaigns.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it, and it is the question of how campaigns are won, and campaign finance is sort of the first biggest elephant in the room. And in order to win, you either got to raise a ton of money, corporate interests, whatever, to your point, tobacco, oil, however the industries come, or you've got to find a way around that. And I think that's probably where you and I agree most is that. For the black community, black electorate, finding the way around the money and getting a candidate in the office is ideal because they're going to express the purest voice. And this isn't just a black issue. This is any American, right? whether you're living in Mississippi, Missouri as a white boy, in St. Louis or so, it's the same thing. Money plays a big role in American politics, but the only way to beat it is organizing. And labor at one point, speared that from the civil rights movement. Labor and the clergy were working together, but it was about organizing. Now you're seeing organizing at a much more local level, much more pure form as well, outside of labor, outside of the clergy, and outside of the power structure. And you're seeing some change in that. You're seeing some elections won.
Yeah, so I think, one, you have to have a political vehicle that's not attached to current electoral interest, right? So unions, tobacco, oil. So that just has to be something that exists for folks who aren't interested in those. And I think this is a really key time to do that, because so many people are looking for new political homes. With the failure of the Democratic Party to do anything effective I would say in the last 4 administrations, to the Republicans being completely hijacked by the MAGA movement, this is a time where so many people are saying, I don't know what I want, but it's not this. And so how do we capture this moment, especially for Black folks, to create that vehicle? I think the second thing that we have to do is to get back to political education and engagement, because the average person who may have a desire or see themselves as a viable public servant doesn't have the political education to navigate, let alone if they get elected, how to navigate the halls of policy, which I think is a place where we've seen even some of our DSA sisters and brothers who had these really awesome ideas, but then you get into City Hall and you realize that ideology and policy and practice are two very different things. But what happens when we get a person who...
Wait. So you got to sell out
No.
to make things happen?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But you do have to know how to maneuver. You do have to become politically strategic. Like you have to use the same wisdom that got you elected, because when you get into that building, there are folks who are career employees that you got to know how to talk to. You got to know how to get them to work with you. You got to know which bathrooms to use at which times. You got to know where the back door is and the side door to exit and enter. And so I think what happens oftentimes are that we have folks who have the spirit of the people, but then once they get elected, we send them in there alone. They do not have any institutional knowledge, and they're trying to push for ideas that they're going to need more support to get ahead of. And I think that a part of what we also have to do is help to educate and empower the folks that we are going to run to get elected, so that they know how to navigate those spaces.
9% of African Americans voted Republican. African American men voted Republican.
Oh man.
91% voted for Joe Biden in 2020.
Yeah.
2024, 24% of Black men voted for Donald John Trump. How in the world did that happen, Edward?
Was it really that high?
It was really, well, that's the numbers that I got from NPR. That's about as neutral a site I can find right now.
Yeah, I'm still surprised by that number, but I mean, look,
and maybe
Trump,
Elon manipulated it.
Right.
I don't know.
For sure that, but Trump 1, Trump 2, right? I think folks were really clear on Trump 2, particularly having experienced 4 years of the foolishness, right? This was a presidency. Trump 1 had to be the worst presidency ever, right? If you just had to score how well effective as an executive he was horrible. And that alone,
dead bodies from COVID to prove.
Right, exactly. That alone would account for it. Now add in the Project 25 for Trump 2 as part of the campaign. I think most Black people were really clear what Trump 2 was meant to be, or what it would mean for our community. That doesn't surprise me that it's 9%. It still seems high, but okay.
Yeah, I think a part of what happened is that Black folks were attacked through political warfare, particularly the narrative between Black men and women that we did not see with any other cultural group of black men let black people and the rest of the world down because they hate women, or and so black men, I think, in their private conversations were like, wait a minute, what? Well, I didn't, that wasn't me, right? And then when you get shut out of a conversation long enough, again, you start looking for other conversations to be a part of. And I think that the Republican Party seized on that to find, though, that other 12% that felt, because let's be clear, Donald Trump is an expert at reaching out to the disenfranchised, to people who feel unseen, unheard. And so I think they just changed the dial for who they were targeting outside of poor whites. And they said, we are now going to reach out to black men who we have now seen in social media, on television, be the cause of why Donald Trump won, because black men didn't show up. Didn't hear about Asian men, didn't hear about Latino men, but black men got centered into the conversation. And so I do think some of them said, you know what, I'll go and be that. And maybe there was something that seemed appealing to them in that new campaign.
There was a difference. Trump 1, Trump 2.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Trump 1, he was putting money on the table for HBCUs. He was talking to black business. Now, in actuality, what all occurred is another story, but his campaign was saying a number of things that for men would be attractive. You also can't take away that the Democratic platform or candidates are not wholeheartedly appealing to black males either, right? And so in the elements of the Democratic candidate and platform that black men strike out, for some black men, that's just a non-starter, and it's easy to switch. And so, complicated question. We're not a monolith, and by no means will we ever be a monolith vote. But I think if there's any one person that could get it, Trump 2 would be the one that you saw the most unity, and 91% sounds pretty unified to me.
I have to tell you, I was in Paris, France in November during the election. And I talked to African diasporic people, brothers from Somalia and Mauritania and Madagascar and whatnot. They were like, we want Trump. Because, the Democrats are going to give us all these stupid regulations and whatnot, and we want to be strong. Having said that, though, the two of you are pretty much representative of what I've seen in black political leadership, both parties. You guys are proud HBCU alums. By most measures, you're successful in life.
Yeah.
You're both married. You're raising your children. You're married to powerhouse women. So you're like in the upper 7,500th of 1% of the typical black male.
Yeah.
And if that's who's leading the black community politically, how do we stay in touch, hear the voices, represent the people who are not in two-parent households, the people who do not have college educations or working in professions, or who are just struggling to keep their child, guide them through the IEP process and make sure they're not just warehoused in school. Yeah. How do we get the voice of the typical black person heard in political spaces?
I think you got to go where they are, right? So just this past weekend, it took me, a 24-hour cycle to really get what happened. Our church participated in the MLK parade.
Some people broke up.
Well,
go ahead.
We'll get to that, right? There's a group, the African Coalition, who framed this as a result of lack of investment in young people, right? So directly connected to this conversation. But we were maybe 10th from the end. We were behind Western, which is kind of the traditional start. And so there's this whole segment of people who are there for the parade, but never got to see Cedric the Entertainer, never got to see Mayor Bass, never got to see any of the reasons that people traditionally go to see the parade. And so I think the same thing happens in our politics and in our community organizing, is we have all the big names in place in the important place, and then the proletariat, the regular person, is left out of the conversation and never and very rarely has access to the people that are saying they speak for Black folks. So I think the easy answer is we got to be where those people are.
You know, this is one of those things where I feel like I'm going to say something just for the clicks. But, I mean, look, you know, this is a broader question of what are we doing as a community, right? And to your intro, the real question is, well, for us, we need to understand that our greatest commodity is ourselves.
Yeah.
It always has been. The talent in our future generations is our hope and promise. We need to value that. And, you know, we won't go back to the Moynihan report and sort of throw that out there, but there is a value to everything that you just laid out, being married, focus on education, all those sorts of things. And, you know, the conservative side of me leans and says, we've fallen away from those core things that make us, you know, unique in the world as African Americans. And we allow ourselves to be devalued. And then frankly, our community is evaluated by the it's not the lowest common denominator. That's not the right way to say it, yeah. But the most underserved is lifted up as the representative of the community. And that's not true, nor is it the greatest example. You know, Michael Jordan is not the purest example of African-American life. It is,
Think not.
Right. It's, you know, it's a mix, right? And I think everyone has to have that healthy understanding of it. But we as a community really have to focus on really what is the first big decision that everyone, and most important, who you're going to have your children with. And when we internally do that, from there, our policies can grow from that.
Sisters will call that traditional male patriarchy.
But I'll push back on that. That's not even patriarchy. That's a strong motherhood, a strong father. It's a family first.
So I'm gonna bring you back with one of my sister girls. We're gonna go into a little bonus time.
Good. Here we go.
We're gonna go into a little bonus time, and producers can edit this in if they find value to it.
Okay.
Charlie Kirk.
Oh man.
However you feel about Charlie Kirk, this dude influenced young folks.
Yeah.
As much as he spewed some vile, hateful stuff towards Black people, I know some young brothers and sisters who pray at the altar of Charlie Kirk. Where's the Black Charlie Kirk?
Man.
Where's the Charlie Kirk on the progressive side who can speak to our brothers and our sisters and get them energized like the young folks were energized on the other side?
Yeah. Not there. And when you raise a Charlie Kirk, it's also important to understand that there's a ton of money behind Charlie Kirk and his operation. And noticeably, there is not the same resources to the alternative, which you described. And I think that's purposeful, right? It takes a great deal of money to organize people in this country along those lines. It's not the end all be all, but also understand, Charlie Kirk was a couple $100 million a year empire. The ability to go around advertising, bring people together, that's a business, and that's money organizing a certain group of people so that they could run for office. We do need something similar. And again, it probably takes our built-in infrastructure that's already there, because we're not going to have the hundreds of millions of dollars to do it.
Well, so I think never say never. I disagree. I think that it's a missed opportunity. First, I don't think that political Black United States plays the offense. We consistently have a defensive strategy. And so because we only play defense, we're never looking for the tools, resources, and ways to advance our agenda. because the agenda is consistently how do we respond? Like we've spent the last 3 years talking about Project 2025, right? Versus what is our project, whatever. When I looked at the Turning Point movement, while Charlie Kirk was backed, what he started out with was just going to have conversations on college campuses and in spaces where young college students were. I think that
the money found him after he
right
started.
when they saw the type of impact that he was having in bringing voices or voices and ears that had been left out again to the beginning of this conversation, he was touching and connecting to people who felt unseen, unheard, and gave them space and a hero that they could say, oh, he speaks for me. Mm-hmm. Same thing that happens in the MAGA movement. I don't believe that Black politics sees value in having a space that actively engages those who have been left out, because then that means that we've got to relinquish some power, and we do not understand technology in a way that we can weaponize it and utilize it for our benefit. So we have, to your point, we have not strategically utilized podcasts. We have not strategically utilized social media. We have not strategically utilized like street engagement in a way that Turning Point was able to. What we see now, really, most Black folks didn't even know it was happening, had never heard of Charlie Kirk until he was shot, right? But young Republican and right-wing college students had been in Turning Point world for, I think, the better part of like 7 years now. And not only were they watching the conversations that he was having on college campuses, but they were also engaging in his podcast. So they were now being, again, politically trained. And their voices were not only being heard, but they saw the things that they saw and felt being said in places of power.
Okay, so everybody take 45 seconds each. What can we be hopeful for as Black people over these next 2 years?
Man, this is the place where Black people thrive. African people historically in these times have built colleges and universities, have built political institutions, have built movements that have moved the dial. And so I think while the outlook is bleak for this country and this world, it's in this space, if we do our work, if we pull together, if we create our own agenda and lay to the side our alliances to all of these political institutions and begin to look at our own, if we go back to the basics, like our own schools, or at least our own after-school programs, re-engage the church not just as a religious body, but as a community institution where we can gather, where we can galvanize dollars, where we can draw support, and we can have a centralized voice to speak to our existing political leaders, that this actually could be one of the greatest transformative times in the history of Black people in America.
Yeah, I look, I don't disagree one bit. Trump is, I'm going to fast forward 10 years, and I think Trump will be seen as a blessing to us because he pushed us to the brink and he put our back against the wall. And we will respond with the avatar state, and we'll shake off all the silliness and come to focus on what's most important. And, as tough as it is to deal with everything this administration and this country is doing right now, the pushback and what we come back with will make this country better. I have to believe that, and that's the hope, right? I have to believe that as a father, that my kids will be able to grow into a country that has some measure of respect for them, and that they can make a living here, that they can raise a family here. It has to be, right? And I've got to hold that firm. That's why, as bad as Trump is, I look forward to the bounce back.
She's not moving there.
And so,
no, I'm just gonna roll my eyes up, turn them white.
As we come to close, I just have to tell everyone, The Roach is a survivor. Black folks aren't survivors. We are achievers. I believe we're going to come up. I don't see any strong leaders emerging or any strong movements, but I'm trusting the Holy Ghost
There we go.
that there will be some peoples raised up for just such a time as this. Thank you all, and we will catch you next time on Conversations, the Future of Blackness.
Different voices, different truths. Moving forward. This is Conversations, the future of blackness.